All right, everybody. This is Matt. Kind of getting us started here. Just a quick rundown for intro, right quick. We're going to start chapter 36, likely read to chapter 50. We may stop before then, but that's the plan going into it. It's going to be myself, Mr. Mac, and we have a new member tonight named Zach. He's going to be listening in. We're going to take turns reading. So, without further ado, I appreciate your time and thank you for tuning in. And I hope you enjoy the reading.
Like in front of a bunch of random people is I'm not very you know
Yeah, no, I
keen on
understand.
that.
All right, I'm back.
So
All right.
I'm not gonna lie, so I recorded the first one and it was super crisp, and then I realized I wasn't recording, so I had to do it again. So I apologize.
no worries,
All
man.
good.
But
Everyone
yeah,
makes
you want to
mistakes.
start, Austin, or you want?
Yeah.
Me too. Okay.
Chapter 36. I'll give it a run. You ready?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Chapter 36, verse 1. Now these are the genealogies of Asua, that is Edom. Asua took his wives from the daughters of Canaan. Ada, daughter of Elon, the Hittite, Aholibah, daughter of Anna, daughter of Zivan, the Hivite, the Basmath, daughter of Ishmael, sister of Nebaioth. Ada bore Eliphaz to Isua. Basmath bore Reel, and Oholibamah, so sorry, forgive me, bore Jehush, Jalam, and Korah. These were Asua's sons who were born to him in the land of Canaan. Now Asua took his wives, his sons, his daughters, and all the people of his household, as well as his livestock, all his cattle, and all his possessions that he had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went to the land away from his brother Jacob. For their possessions were too numerous for them to dwell together, and the land where they were residing was unable to support them because of their livestock. And Asua lived in Mount Seir. Asua is Edom. So these are the genealogies of Asua, the father of Edom, in the hill country of Seir. These are the names of Asua's sons: Eliphaz, son of Asua's wife Ada, and Reel, son of Asua's wife Basmath. The sons of Eliphaz were Timon, Omar, Zepho, Katam, and Genaz. Now Timnah was the concubine to Ezua's sons Eliphaz, and she bore Amalek to Eliphaz. These are the sons of Asua's wife Adah. These are Reel's sons Nahath, Zerah, Shema, and Mizah. These were the sons of Azua's wife Basmath. These were the sons of Aholibamah. Sorry, I lost my place. My daughter, daughter of Anah, daughter of Azua's wife Zibanon. She bore to Asua Jehush, Jalam, and Korah. These are the chiefs of Azua's sons. The sons of Eliphaz, Azua's firstborn, were Chief Temen, Chief Omar, Chief Zepho, Chief Genaz, Chief Korah, Chief Katam, Chief Amalek. These are the chiefs from Eliphaz in the land of Edom. These are the sons of Ada. These are the sons of Asua's son. Wait, I'm sorry. These are the sons of Asua's son, Reu, chief of Nahath, Chief Zerah, Chief Shammah, Chief Mizah. These are the chiefs from Reu in the land of Edom. These are the sons of Azua's wife Basmath. These are the sons of Azua's wife Aholibamah, Chief Jehush, Chief Jalam, Chief Korah. These are the chiefs from Olibamah, daughter of Azua's wife Anna. These are Azua's sons, and these are their chiefs. That is Edom. These are the sons of Seir, the Horite, and the inhabitants of the land: Lotan, Shabal, Zebion, Anna, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan. These are the chiefs of the Horites, the sons of Seir in the land of Edom. The sons of Lotan were Horai, and Hemam. Lotan's sister is Timnah. These are Shabal's sons: Alvin, Manahath, Abel, Shepho, and Onam. These are Zebion's sons: Aya and Anah. That is the Anah who found the hot springs in the desert while he was pasturing the donkeys of his father Zebion. These are the children of Anah, Dishan, and Oholibamah, Anah's daughter. These are Dishan's sons: Hemdan, Ishben, Itran, and Sharon. These are Ezer's sons: Bilhan, Zavan, and Akan. These are Dishan's sons: Uz and Aran. These are the chiefs of the Horites: Chief Lotan, Chief Shobal, Chief Zivian, Chief Anah, Chief Dishan, Chief Ezer, Chief Dishan. These are the chiefs of the Horites according to their chiefly division in the land of Seir. Now these are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king reigned over the son of Israel. Bela, son of Beor, reigned in Edom. The name of his city was Dinhabah. Then, when Bela died, Jobab, son of Zerah from Bozrah, reigned in his place. When Jobab died, Husham from the land of the Temanites reigned in his place. Then Husham died. Hadad, son of Bedad, who struck down the Midianites in the field of Moab, reigned in his place. The name of his city was Avit. When Hadad died, Samlah, the Masrekah, reigned in his place. When Samlah died, Shul from Rehovot by the river reigned in his place. When Shul died, Balhanan, son of Achbor, reigned in his place. When Balhanan, son of Achbor, died, Hadar reigned in his place. The name of his city, Pau. And his wife's name is Meheltabel, daughter of Matred, daughter of Mezahab. Now these are the names of the chiefs from Esua, according to their family divisions, according to their places, by their names. Chief Timnah, Chief Alva, Chief Japheth, Chief Aholibamah, Chief Elah, Chief Pinon, Chief Kenza, Chief Temen, Chief Mibzar, Chief Magdiel, Chief Iram. These are the chiefs of Edom according to their places of residence in the land of their possession. This is Esua, the father of Edom. Good night, boys. I'm sorry about that one. I was barely.
The next few chapters are all kind of.
There were like 50 names that
Yeah,
just
yeah.
looked
feel
like they'd give you a hard time.
Dude, the funny part was I would say the same name but like 3 different ways by the time I got done with it. So
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I mean, some of those.
What
names
chapter
were tough,
did we
so.
just finish? I apologize.
Chapter we're going to be on chapter 37.
37. Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
All right, so Joseph's dreams. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. These are the family records of Jacob. Another one. At 17 years of age, Joseph tended sheep with his brothers. The young man was working with the sons of Bala and Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought a bad report about them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than his other sons, because Joseph was a son born to him in his old age. And he made a long sleeved robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him, and could not bring themselves to speak peaceably to him. Then Joseph had a dream. When he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. There we were, binding sheaves of grain in the field. Suddenly, my sheaf stood up, and your sheaves gathered around it, and bowed down to my sheaf. Are you really going to reign over us?" His brothers asked him. "Are you really going to rule us?" So they hated him even more because of his dream and what he said. Then he had another dream and told it to his brothers. "Look," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun, moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." He told his father and his brothers, and his father rebuked him. "What kind of dream is this that you have had?" He said, "Am I and your mother and your brothers really going to come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. His brothers had gone to pasture their father's flocks at Shechem. Israel said to Joseph, "Your brothers, are pasturing the flocks at Shechem. Get ready, I'm sending you to them." "I'm ready," Joseph replied. Then Israel said to him, Go and see how your brothers and the flocks are doing, and bring word back to me." So he sent him from Hebron Valley, and he went to Shechem. A man found him there, wandering in the field, and asked him, "What are you looking for?" "I'm looking for my brothers," Joseph said. "Can you tell me where they are pasturing their flocks?" "They've moved on from here," the man said. "I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dathan.'" So Joseph set out after his brothers and found them at Dathan. They saw him in the distance, and before he had reached them, they plotted to kill him. They said to one another, "Oh, look, here comes that dream expert. So now come on, let's kill him and throw him into one of the pits. We can say that a vicious animal ate him. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams." When Reuben heard this, he tried to save him from them. He said, "Let's not take his life." Reuben also said to them, "Don't shed blood. Throw him into this pit in the wilderness. Don't lay a hand on him, intending to rescue him from them, and return him to his father." When Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped off Joseph's robe, the long-sleeved robe that he had on. Now I lost my spot. Then they took him and threw him into the pit. The pit was empty, without water. They sat down to eat a meal, and when they looked up, there was a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were carrying aromatic, gum, balsam, and resin, going down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What do we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come on, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay a hand on him, for he is our brother, our own flesh." And his brothers agreed. When Midianite traders passed by, his brothers pulled Joseph out of the pit and sold him for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took Joseph to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, "The boy is gone. What am I going to do?" So they took Joseph's robe, slaughtered a male goat, and dipped the robe in its blood. They sent the long-sleeved robe to their father and said, "We found this. Examine it. Is it your son's robe or not?" His father recognized it. "It is my son's robe," he said. "A vicious animal has devoured him. Joseph has been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth around his waist, and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and daughters tried to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "I will go down to Sheol, my son. down to Sheol to my son mourning, and his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the guards.
I guess I'll take up
Okay.
next chapter. Genesis 38. And
Yes,
it came
sir.
to pass that at that time that Judah went down from his brethren and turned into a certain Alminite, whose name was Hira. And Judah saw that there was a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Sua. And he took her and went in unto her, and she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name Ir. And she conceived again and bare a son, and he called his name Onan. And yet again she conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Selah. And he was at Chezibip when she bare him. And Judah took a wife for I lost my place. Judah took a wife for Er, his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. And Er, Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. And Judah said unto Onan, Go unto thy brother's wife, and marry her, and raise up seed to thy brother. And Onan knew that the seed should not be his, and it came to pass, when he went in unto his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord. Therefore he slew him also. Then said Judah to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow at thy father's house, till Selah my son be grown. For he said, Lest peradventure he die also, as his brethren did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. And in process of time the daughter of Sua, Judah's wife, died. And Judah was comforted, and went up unto his sheep shearers to Timnath, he and his friends Hira and the Almonite. And it was told Tamar, saying, Behold, thy father-in-law goeth up to Timnath to shear his sheep. And she put her widow garments off from her, and covered her with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place, which is by the way to Timnath. For she saw that Selah was grown, and that she was not given unto him to wife. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be an harlot, because she had covered her face. And he turned unto her by the way, and said, Go to, I pray thee, let me come into thee. For he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, What wilt thou give me, that thou mayest come in unto me? And he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock. And she said, Wilt thou give me a pledge till thou send it? And he said, What pledge shall I give thee? And she said, Thy signest and thy bracelets, and thy staff that is in thy hand. And he gave it to her, and came in unto her, and she conceived by him. And she rose, and went away, and laid by her veil from her, and put on garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by hand of his friend the Ammonite to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. Then he asked the men of that place, saying, Where is the harlot that was openly by the wayside? And that they said that there was no harlot in this place. And he returned to Judah, and said, I cannot find her. And also the men of the place said, There was no harlot in this place. And Judah said, Let her take it to her, lest we be shamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and thou hast not found her. And it came to pass, about 3 months after, that it was told Judah, saying, Tamar, thy daughter-in-law, hath played the harlot, and also, behold, she is with child by whoredom. And Judah said, Bring her forth, and let her be burned. When she was brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, By the man whose these are, am I with child? And she said, Discern, I pray thee, whose are these, the signet, and the bracelets, and staff. And Judah acknowledged them, and said, She hath been more righteous than I, because I gave her not to Selah my son, and he knew her again no more. And it came to pass in the time of her travail, that, behold, twins were in her womb. And it came to pass, when she travailed, that the one out of his hand, and the midwife took him, bound upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, This came out first. And it came to pass, as he drew back his hand, that, behold, his brother came out. And she said, How hast thou broken forth this breach upon thee? Therefore his name was called Pharez. And afterwards came out his brother, and that had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zara.
All right.
Alright.
You got it, or you want me to do it?
Yeah, I got it. Thank
Okay.
you, brother. Thank
no
you.
problem.
I got it. 39. Joseph succeeds in adversity. Now Joseph had been brought down to Egypt. Potiphar, an official of Pharaoh, commander of the bodyguards, brought him from the hand of the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. But Adonai was with Joseph. So he became a successful man in the house of his master, the Egyptian. His master saw that Adonai was with him, and that Adonai made everything he set his hand to success. Joseph found favor in his eyes, so he served him as a personal servant, and made him an overseer over his household. Everything that was his he entrusted into his hands. From the time that he made him an overseer in his house, and over everything that belonged to him, Adonai blessed the Egyptian's house because of Joseph. Adonai's blessing was on everything that belonged to him, in the house and in the field. So he released everything he owned into Joseph's hand. With him in charge, he did not think about anything except the food he ate. Now Joseph was handsome in form and handsome in appearance. Now after these things, the master's wife lifted up her eyes at Joseph and said, Come lay down with me. But he refused. Look, he said to his master's wife, my master doesn't think about anything in the house with me in charge, and everything that belongs to him he's entrusted into my hand. No one in this house is greater than I, and he has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. So how could I commit this great evil and sin against God? So whenever she spoke to Joseph day after day, he did not listen to her invitation to lie down beside her, to be with her. Now on one such day he came into the house to do his work, and none of the people of the house were there in the house. Then she grabbed him by the garment, saying, Come lie down with me. But he left his garment in her hand, fled, and went outside. When she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and fled outside, she screamed to the men of her house and said to them, Look, someone brought a Hebrew man to us to fool us. He approached me to lie with me, so I screamed out loud. When he heard me raise my voice and scream, he left his garment with me, fled, and went outside. Then she kept the garment with her until her master came home. She spoke the same words to him, saying, The Hebrew slave that you brought us approached me to fool with me. When I raised my voice and screamed, he left his garment with me and fled outside. Now when his master heard the words his wife spoke to him, saying, Such are the things your slave did to me, his anger burned. Then Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. So there he was, in the prison. But Adonai was with Joseph, and extended kindness to him, and gave him favor in the eyes of the commander of the prison. The commander of the prison entrusted into Joseph's hand all the prisoners who were in the prison, so that everything that was done there, he was responsible for it. The commander of the prison did not concern himself with anything at all under his care, because Adonai was with him, and Adonai made whatever he did successful.
After this, the king of Egypt's cupbearer and baker, offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guards, in the prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guards assigned Joseph to them as their personal attendant, and they were in custody for some time. The king of Egypt's cupbearer and baker, who were confined in the prison, each had a dream. Both had a dream on the same night, and each dream had its own meaning. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they looked distraught. So he asked Pharaoh's officers, who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" "We had dreams," they said to him, "but there is no one to interpret them." Then Joseph said to them, Don't interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." So the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph. "In my dream, there was a vine in front of me. On the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, its blossoms came out, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." This is the interpretation, Joseph said to him. "The 3 branches are 3 days. In just 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position. You will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, the way you used to when you were his cupbearer. But when all goes well for you, remember that I was with you. Please show kindness to me by mentioning me to Pharaoh, and get me out of this prison, for I was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing that they should put me in the dungeon." When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was positive, he said to Joseph, "I also had a dream. 3 baskets of white bread were on my head. In the top basket were all sorts of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head." "This is the interpretation," Joseph replied. The 3 baskets are 3 days. In just 3 days, the Pharaoh will lift up your head from off of you, and hang you on a tree. Then the birds will eat the flesh from your body. On the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he gave a feast for all his servants. He elevated the chief cupbearer and the chief baker among his servants. Pharaoh restored the chief cupbearer to his position as cupbearer, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But Pharaoh hanged the chief baker, just as Joseph had explained to them. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph. He forgot him.
I can get this next one.
Yeah,
Uh,
man. Absolutely.
Chapter
Chapter 41.
41. After 2 whole years, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile, and there came up out of the Nile 7 sleek and fat cows, and they grazed in the reed grass. Then 7 other cows, ugly and thin, came up out of the Nile after them, and stood by the other cows on the bank of the Nile. The ugly and thin cows ate up at 7 sleek and fat cows, and Pharaoh awoke. Then he fell asleep and dreamed a second time. 7 ears of grain, plump and good, were growing on one stalk. Then 7 ears, thin and blighted by the east wind, sprouted after them. The thin ears swallowed up the 7 plump and full ears. Pharaoh awoke, and it was a dream. In the morning his spirit was troubled, so he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but there was no one who could interpret them to Pharaoh. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "I remember my faults today." Once Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me and the chief baker in custody in the house of the captain of the guard. We dreamed on the same night, he and I each having a dream with its own meaning. A young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. When we told him, he interpreted our dreams to us, giving an interpretation to each according to his dream. As he interpreted to us, so it turned out, I was restored to my office, and the baker was hanged. Then Pharaoh sent out for Joseph, and he was hurriedly brought out of the dungeon. When he had shaved himself and changed his clothes, he came in before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it. I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. Joseph answered Pharaoh, "It is not I. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream I was standing on the bank of the Nile, and 7 cows, fat and sleek, came up out of the Nile and fed in the reed grass. Then 7 other cows came up after them, poor, very ugly and thin. Never had I seen such ugly ones in all the land of Egypt. The thin and ugly cows ate up the first 7 fat cows. But when they had eaten them, no one would have known that they had done so, for they were still ugly as before. Then I woke. I fell asleep a second time, and I saw in my dream 7 ears of grain, 7 full and good, growing on one stalk, and 7 ears withered, thin, and blighted by the east wind sprouting after them. The thin ears swallowed up the 7 good ears, but when I told it to the magicians, there was no one there who could explain it to me. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh's dreams are one and the same. God has revealed to the Pharaoh what he is about to do to you. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dreams are one. The 7 lean and ugly cows that came up after them are 7 years, as they are 7 empty ears, blighted by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. It is as I told Pharaoh. God has shown to the Pharaoh what he is about to do. There will come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. After them there will rise 7 years of famine, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will consume the land. The plenty will no longer be known in the land because of the famine that will follow, for it will be very grievous. And the doubling of Pharaoh's dream means that thing is fixed by God, and God will shortly bring it about. Now therefore let the Pharaoh select a man who is discerning and wise, set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers over the land, and take 1/5 the produce of land of Egypt during the 7 plenteous years. Let them gather all the food of these good years that are coming, and lay up grain under the authority of Pharaoh for food in the cities, and let them keep it. Sorry, just give me a second. That food shall be a reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to befall the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish through the famine. The proposal pleased Pharaoh and all his servants. Pharaoh said to his servants, Can we find anyone else like this, one in whom is the Spirit of God? So Pharaoh said to Joseph, Since God has shown you all this, there is no one discerning and as wise as you. You shall be over my house, and all the people shall order themselves as you command. Only with regard to the throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. Removing his signet ring from his hand, Pharaoh put it on Joseph's hand. He arrayed him in garments of fine linen, and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in the chariot of his second in command, and they cried out in front of him, Bow the knee. Thus he set him over all the land of Egypt. Moreover, Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without your consent no one shall lift up hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zaphenath-Paneah, and he gave him Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, as his wife. Thus Joseph gained authority over the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh of King Egypt. Joseph was During the 7 plenteous years the earth produced abundantly. He gathered up all the food of the 7 years where there was plenty in the land of Egypt, and stored up food in the cities. He stored up in every city the food from the fields around it. So Joseph stored up grain in much abundance, like the land of the sea, that he stopped measuring it. It was beyond measure. Before the years of famine came, Joseph had 2 sons, whom Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bore him. Joseph named the firstborn Manasseh, for, he said, God has made me forget all my hardship in all my father's house. Second, he named Ephraim, for God has made me fruitful in the land of misfortunes. The 7 years of plenty that prevailed in the land of Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began to come. Just as Joseph said, there was famine in every country, but throughout the land of Egypt there was bread. When all in the land of Egypt was famished, people cried to Pharaoh for bread. Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, Go to Joseph. What he says to you, do. And since the famine had spread all over the land, Joseph opened up all the storehouses and sold to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Moreover, all the world came to Joseph in Egypt to buy grain, because the famine became severe throughout the world.
Alrighty. Genesis 42. Now that when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, Why do you look upon one another? And he said, Behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down to thither, and buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die. And Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy corn in Egypt. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob, sent not with his brethren, for he said, Lest peradventure mischief befall him. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn. Among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was the governor over the land. And he said it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces in the earth. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them. But he made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, Whence come you? And they said, From the land of Canaan, to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they did not know him. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed of them, and said unto them, You are spies. To see the nakedness of the land you are come. And they said unto him, Nay, my lord, but to buy food are thy servants come. We are all one man's sons. We are true men. Thy servants are no spies. And he said unto them, Nay, but to see the nakedness of the land ye are come. And they said, Thy servants are 12 brethren, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest in this day with our father, and one is not. And Joseph said unto them, That is it, that I spake unto you, saying, Ye are spies. Hereby ye shall be proved. By the life of Pharaoh ye shall go, not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come hither. Send one of you, and let him fetch your brother, and ye shall be kept in prison, that your words may be proved, whether there be any truth in you. Or else by the life of Pharaoh you are surely spies. And he put them all together in ward 3 days. And Joseph said unto them the third day, This do, and live, for I fear God. If you be true men, let one of your brethren be bound in the house of your prison. Go, you carry corn for the famine of your houses. But bring your youngest brother unto me, so shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die. And they did so. And they said to one another, We are verily guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the anguish of his soul, when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore in this distress come upon us. And Reuben answered them, saying, Spake I unto you, not unto you, saying, Do not sin against the child. And ye would not hear. Therefore, behold, also his blood is required. And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spake unto them by an interpreter. And he turned himself about from them, and wept, and returned to them again, and communed with them, and took from them Simeon, and bound him before their eyes. Then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn, and to store every man's money into his sack, and to give them provision for the way. And thus did he unto them. And they ladled their asses with the corn, and departed thence. And as one of them opened his sack to give his ass provender in the inn, he espied his money, for behold, it is in his sack's mouth. And he said unto his brethren, My money is restored, and lo, it is even in my sack. And their heart failed them, and they were afraid, saying to one another, What is this that God hath done unto us? And they come into Jacob their father unto the land of Canaan, and told him all that befell unto them, saying, The man who is the Lord of the land spake roughly unto us, and took us for spies of the country. And we said unto him, We are true men, we are no spies. We be 12 brethren, sons of our father. One is not, and the youngest in this day with our father in the land of Canaan. And the man, the Lord of the country, said unto us, Hereby shall I know that you are true men. Leave one of your brethren here with me, and take food for your famine of your households, and be gone. And bring your youngest brother unto me. Then shall I know that you are not spies, but that you are true men. So I will deliver you your brother, and shall traffic in the land. And it came to pass, as they emptied their sacks, that, behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when both they and their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob their father said unto them, Me have ye bereaved of my children. Joseph is not, and Simeon is not, and ye will take Benjamin away. All these things are against me. And Reuben spake unto his father, saying, Slay my two sons, if I bring him not to thee. Deliver him unto my hand, and I will bring him to thee again. And he said, My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If all mischief befell him by the way in the which you go, then shall you bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave.
All right, chapter 43. Now the famine was severe in the land. When they finished eating the grain they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, Go back, buy us a little food. But Judah said to him, The man warned us firmly, saying, You won't see my face unless your brother is with you. If you send our brother with us, we will go down and buy grain for you for food. But if you won't send him, we won't go down, because the man said to us, You won't see my face unless your brother is with you. Then Israel said, Why did you do evil to me by telling the man that you have another brother? They said, The man questioned particularly about us and about our relatives, saying, Is your father still alive? Do you have a brother? So we spoke to him on the basis of these words. How could we possibly know that he would say, Bring your brother down? Then Judah said to his father Israel, Please send the boy with me. We'll get up and go, so that we'll live and not die, we and you and our children. I myself will be his pledge. You can demand him back from my own hand. If I don't bring him back to you and place him before you, then you can blame me all my days. If we had not delayed, we could have returned twice by now. Then their father Israel said to them, If it must be so, then do this. Take some of the best products of the land in your bags and bring an offering down to the man, a little balsam and a little honey, gum and myrrh, pistachios and almonds. Also take in your hand a double portion of silver, and bring back in your hand the silver that had been returned in the mouth of your sacks. Perhaps it was a mistake. Take your brother too. Now, get up, go back to the man. May El Shaddai grant you mercy before the man, so that he may release your other brother to you, along with Benjamin. As for me, I am bereaved. I am bereaved. I am bereaved. The brothers return with Benjamin. Then the men took this offering. They also took the double portion of silver in their hand, as well as Benjamin. So they got up and went down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the one over his house, Bring the men into the house. Slaughter an animal and prepare it, for the men will eat with me this afternoon. So the man did as Joseph said, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house. But the men were afraid because they had been brought into Joseph's house. They said, It's because of the silver that was returned to our sacks the first time that we are being brought in, to pounce on us and fall on us and take us as slaves along with our donkeys. So they approached the man who was over Joseph's house and spoke to him at the entrance of the house. I beg your pardon, my lord, they said. We indeed came down on the previous occasion to buy grain for food. When we came back to the lodge and opened our sacks, behold, there was each man's money at the opening of the sack, the full amount of our money. So we returned it in our hand. Excuse me. Moreover, we've brought down other money in our hand to buy grain for food. We didn't know who put our money into our sacks. Be at peace, he replied. Don't be afraid. Your God and the God of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. Your money had come to me. Then he brought Simon out to them. And the man brought the men into Joseph's house, gave them water, and they washed their feet. He also provided fodder for the donkeys. So they prepared the offering for Joseph's coming at noon, for they had heard that they were going to eat there. When Joseph came home, they brought him the offering in their hand into the house, and they bowed down to the ground to him. Then he asked if they were well, and said, "Is he well, your elderly father that you told me about? Is he still alive?" "Your servant, our father, is well," they said. "He's still alive." Then they knelt and bowed down. Then he lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, "Is this your youngest brother whom you mentioned to me?" Then he said, "May God be gracious to you, my son." Then Joseph hurried out because his compassion grew warm and tender toward his brother, so that he wanted to cry. So he went into an inner room and wept there. Then he washed his face, came out, and controlled himself. "Serve the food," he said. So they served him by himself, them by themselves, and the Egyptians who were eating with him by themselves. For Egyptians could not eat with Hebrews because it was an abomination to Egyptians. They were seated before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. The men looked at each other in astonishment. Then portions were brought to them from before him, and Benjamin's portion was 5 times larger than any of their portions. Yet they drank and made merry with him.
All right, 44. Joseph commanded his steward, "Fill the men's bags with as much food as they can carry, and put each one's silver at the top of his bag. Put my cup, my goodness, put my cup, the silver one at the top of the youngest one's bag, along with the silver for his grain." So he did as Joseph told him. At morning light, the men were sent off with their donkeys. They had not gone very far from the city when Joseph said to his steward, "Get up, pursue the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, why have you repaid evil for good? Isn't this the cup that my master drinks from and uses for divination? What you have done is wrong." When he overtook them, he said these words to them. They said to him, "Why does my lord say these things? Your servants could not possibly do such a thing. We even brought back to you from the land of Canaan the silver we found at the top of our bags. How could we steal silver or gold from your master's house? If it is found with one of us, your servants, he must die, and the rest of us will become my lord's slaves." Then the steward replied, "What you have said is right, but only the man who is found to have it will be my slave, and the rest of you will be blameless." So each one quickly lowered his sack to the ground and opened it. The steward searched, beginning with the oldest and ending with the youngest, and the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. Then they tore their clothes, and each one loaded his donkey and returned to the city. When Judah and his brothers reached Joseph's house, he was still there. They fell to the ground before him. "What have you done?" Joseph said to them. "Didn't you know that a man like me could uncover the truth by divination?" "What can we say to my lord?" Judah replied. "How can we plead? How can we justify ourselves? God has exposed your servant's iniquity. We are now my lord's slaves, both we and the one in whose possession the cup was found." Then Joseph said, "I swear that I will not do this. The man in whose possession the cup was found will be my slave. The rest of you can go in peace to your father." But Judah approached him and said, "My lord, please let your servant speak personally to my lord. Do not be angry with your servant, for you are like Pharaoh." My lord asked his servants, "Do you have a father or a brother?" And we answered, "My lord, we have an elderly father and a younger brother, the child of his old age. The boy's brother is dead. He is the only one of his mother's sons left, and his father loves him. Then you said to your servants, 'Bring him to me, so that I can see him.' But we said to my lord, 'The boy cannot leave his father. If he were to leave, his father would die. Then you said to your servants, if your younger brother does not come with you, you will not see me again. This is what happened when we went back to your servant, my father. We reported to him the words of my lord. But our father said, Go again and buy us a little food. We told him, We cannot go down unless your younger brother goes with us. If our younger brother isn't with us, we cannot see the man. Your servant, my father, said to us, You know that my wife bore me 2 sons. One is gone from me. I said he must have been torn to pieces, and I have never seen him again. If you also take this one from me and anything happens to him, you will bring my gray hairs down to Sheol in sorrow. So if I come to your servant, my father, and the boy is not with us, his life is wrapped up with the boy's life. When he sees that the boy is not with us, he will die. Then your servants will have brought the gray hairs of your servant, our father, down to Sheol in sorrow. Your servant became accountable to my father for the boy, saying, If I do not return him to you, I will always bear the guilt for sinning against you, my father. Now please let your servant remain here as my lord's slave, in place of the boy. Let him go back with his brothers. For how can I go back to my father without the boy? I could not bear to see the grief that would overwhelm my father.
Alrighty. Genesis 45. Now Joseph could no longer restrain himself in front of all those who were standing by him. So he cried out, Get everyone away from me. So no one stood with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. But he gave his voice to weeping so that the Egyptians heard, and Pharaoh's household heard. Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? And his brothers were unable to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, Please come near me. So they came near. I am Joseph, your brother, the one who you sold to Egypt, he said. So now, don't be grieved and don't be angry in your own eyes that you sold me here, since it was for preserving the life that God sent me here before you. For there has been 2 years of famine in the land, and there will be 5 more, yet with no plowing or harvesting. But God sent me ahead of you to ensure a remnant in the land, and to keep you alive for a great escape. So now it wasn't you. You didn't send me here, but God. And he had made me as a father to Pharaoh, lord over this whole house, and ruler of the entire land of Egypt. Go up quickly to my father and say to him, Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me a lord over all Egypt. Come down to me, don't delay. Then you'll live in the land of Goshen and be close to me. You and your children's children, your flocks and your cattle, everything that belongs to you. I'll provide food for you there, for the famine will last another 5 years. Otherwise, you'll lose everything, you and your household and everything that belongs to you. And look, you and my brother Benjamin can see with your own eyes that it's my mouth that speaks to you. You must tell my father about all my honor in Egypt and about all that you've seen, and you must quickly bring my father down here. He then fell upon his brother's Benjamin's neck and wept while Benjamin wept upon his neck. And he kissed all his brothers and wept upon them. Finally, after this, his brothers talked with him. When the commotion was heard in Pharaoh's house, Joseph's brothers has come. It was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and his servants. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, Say to your brothers, do this, load your animals and go to the land of Canaan. Then get your father, your households, and come to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you will eat the fat of the land. You are also commanded to say this, do this, take yourselves wagons from the land of Egypt for your little children and your wives, and pick up your father and come. Don't be concerned about your goods, because the best of all the land of Egypt is yours. So the sons of Israel did so. Joseph gave them carts by Pharaoh's command, and he gave them provisions for the journey. To each of them he gave a change of clothes, while to Benjamin he gave 30 pieces of silver, 5 sets of clothes. Also to his father he sent the following: 10 donkeys carrying from the best of Egypt, 10 female donkeys carrying grain and food and provisions for his father's journey. And then he sent his brothers off, and as they departed, he said to them, "Don't be anxious on the way." They went up from Egypt and came to the land of Canaan, to Jacob, their father. They told him, saying, "Joseph is still alive, and he is ruler over the whole land of Egypt." His heart went numb, for he did not believe them. But they told him all Joseph's words that he had told them. When he saw the wagons and Joseph had sent to pick him up, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. Then Israel said, "Enough, my son Joseph is still alive. I must go and see him before I die."
All right. 46. So Israel set out, along with everything that belonged to him. When he came to Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. In visions of the night, God said to Israel, "Jacob, Jacob." Hineni said, he said, "I am God, the God of your father," he said. "Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will turn you into a great nation there. I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I myself will also most certainly bring you up. Joseph will put his hands on your eyes." Then Jacob arose from Beersheba, and Israel's sons carried Jacob their father, their little children, and their wives in the carts that Pharaoh had sent to carry him. They also took their livestock and their possessions they had acquired in the land of Canaan, and they came to Egypt, Jacob and all his offspring with him. His sons and his grandsons with him, his daughters and his granddaughters, and all his offspring he brought with him to Egypt. Now these are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt: Jacob and his sons, Jacob's firstborn, Reuben, and Reuben's sons, Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. Simon's sons, Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jakshan, Zochar, and Shalu, the son of the Canaanite women. Levi's sons, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Judah's son, Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. Died along with Onan in the land of Canaan. Perez's sons were Hezron and Hamlu. Issachar's sons, Tola, Puva, Lob, and Shimron. Zebulon's sons, Sered, Elon, and Jali. These are Leah's sons, whom she bore to Jacob in Padan Aram, along with his daughter Dinah. Dinah? The tally of all his sons and his daughters was 33 people. God's sons, Zephion, Hagi, Shuni, Esbon, Eri, Arodai, and Ariel. Asher's sons, Imnah, Ishva, Izvi, Beria, and Sarah, their sister. Buriah's sons, Heber and Malchali. Say that. These are the sons of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to Leah, his daughter. She bore these sons to Jacob, 16 people. The sons of Jacob's wife, Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin, Manasseh, and Ephraim were born to Joseph in the land of Egypt. Ezanath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bore them to him. Benjamin's sons, Bela, Beecher, Ashbel, Gira, Naaman, Ehi, Rosh, Muppin, Humpin, and Ard. These are Rachel's sons who were born to Jacob. The tally of all the people was 14. The sons of Dan, Hushim, and Naphtali's sons, Yakzel, Guni, Yezer, and Shelem. These are the sons of Bilhah, who Laban gave to Rachel his daughter, and she bore these to Jacob. The tally of all the people was 7. All the people belonging to Jacob who came to Egypt, those coming from his loins, not counting the wives of Jacob's sons. The tally of all the people was 66. The sons of Joseph who were born to him in Egypt was a tally of 2 people. The tally of all the people belonging to Jacob's house who came to Egypt was 70. Now he sent Judah before him to Joseph to show him the way of Goshen. When they came to the land of Goshen, Joseph harnessed his chariot and went up to Goshen to meet his father Israel. As soon as he appeared before him, he fell upon his neck and wept on his neck for some time. Then Israel said to Joseph, "At this time I am ready to die, after seeing your face in person, for you're still alive." Then Joseph said to his brother and to his father's household, "I'll go up and tell Pharaoh, and say to him, My brothers and my father's household, who were in the land of Canaan, have come to me. The men are shepherds, for they have been men who handle livestock, who have brought their flocks and cattle and everything they possess. So, when Pharaoh calls you and says, 'What is your occupation?' you must say, 'Your servants have been men who handle livestock since the time of our youth until now, both we and our fathers, so that you can live in the land of Goshen, because every shepherd is loathsome to the Egyptians.'"
All right. 47. So Joseph went and informed Pharaoh, "My father and my brothers, with their flocks and herds and all that they own, have come from the land of Canaan, and are now in the land of Goshen." He took 5 of his brothers and presented them to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh asked his brothers, "What is your occupation?" They said to Pharaoh, "Your servants, both we and our ancestors, are shepherds." And they said to Pharaoh, "We have come to stay in the land for a while, because there is no grazing land for your servants' sheep, since the famine in the land of Canaan has been severe. So now, please let your servants settle in the land of Goshen." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Now that your father and brothers have come to you, the land of Egypt is open before you. Settle your father and brothers in the best part of the land. They can live in the land of Goshen. If you know of any capable men among them, put them in charge of my livestock." Joseph then brought his father, Jacob, and presented him to Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Jacob, "How many years have you lived?" Jacob said to Pharaoh, "My pilgrimage has lasted 130 years. My years have been few and hard, and they have not reached the years of my ancestors during their pilgrimages." So Jacob blessed Pharaoh and departed from Pharaoh's presence. Then Joseph settled his father and brothers in the land of Egypt, and gave them property in the best part of the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph provided his father, his brothers, and all of his father's family with food for their dependents. But there was no food in the entire region, for the famine was very severe. The land of Egypt and the land of Canaan were exhausted by famine. Joseph collected all the silver to be found in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan in exchange for the grain they were purchasing. And he brought the silver to Pharaoh's palace. When the silver from the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan was gone, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, "Give us food. Why should we die here in front of you? The silver is gone." But Joseph said, "Give me your livestock. Since the silver is gone, I will give you food in exchange for your livestock." So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and he gave them food in exchange for the horses, the flocks of sheep, the herds of cattle, and the donkeys. That year, he provided them with food in exchange for all their livestock. When the year was over, they came the next year and said to him, "We cannot hide from our Lord that the silver is gone, and that all of our livestock belongs to our Lord. There was nothing left for our land except our bodies and our land." Why should we die here in front of you, both us and our land? Buy us and our land in exchange for food. Then we, with our land, will become Pharaoh's slaves. Give us seed so that we can live and not die, and so that the land won't become desolate. In this way, Joseph acquired all the land in Egypt for Pharaoh, because every Egyptian sold his field, since the famine was so severe for them. The land became Pharaoh's, and Joseph made the people servants from one end of Egypt to the other. The only land he did not acquire belonged to the priests, for they had an allowance from Pharaoh. They ate from their allowance that Pharaoh gave them. Therefore, they did not sell their land. Joseph said to the people, Understand today that I have acquired you and your land for Pharaoh. Here is seed for you. Sow it in the land. At harvest, you are to give a fifth of it to Pharaoh, and 4/5 will be yours, as the seed for the field and as food for yourselves, your households, and your dependents. You have saved our lives, they said. We have found favor with our Lord, and will be Pharaoh's slaves. So Joseph made it a law, still in effect today in the land of Egypt, that a fifth of the produce belongs to Pharaoh. Only the priest's land does not belong to Pharaoh. Israel settled in the land of Egypt, in the region of Goshen. They acquired property in it and became fruitful and very numerous. Now Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years, and his lifespan was 147 years. When the time approached for him to die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, If I have found favor with you, put your hand under my thigh, and promise me that you will deal with me in kindness and faithfulness. Do not bury me in Egypt. When I rest with my ancestors, carry me away from Egypt and bury me in their burial place. Joseph answered, I will do what you have asked. And Jacob said, Swear to me. So Joseph swore to him. Then Israel bowed in thanks at the head of his bed. That was it. I was going to keep going.
All right. All right. 48. That's me, right? I think so.
Yeah, I mean, whoever,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's.
Yeah, I'm going.
If you
I'm
don't
going.
want
I'm
to,
going.
I can, or whomever.
No, I got it. After these things, someone told Joseph, Behold, your father is sick. So he took his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, with him. When someone told Jacob, saying, Behold, your son Joseph has come to you, Israel summoned his strength and sat up in the bed. Then Jacob said to Joseph, El Shaddai appeared to me in Luz, in the land of Canaan, and blessed me. He said to me, I'm going to make you fruitful, multiply you, and turn you into an assembly of peoples. And I will give you this land to your seed after you as an everlasting possession. So now your two sons, who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt, they are mine. Ephraim and Manasseh will be mine, just like Reuben and Simon. Any descendant of yours whom your father after them will be yours, they will be identified by the names of their brothers for their inheritance. Now as for me, when I came from Padan, to my sorrow Rachel died along the way in the land of Canaan, while we were still a distance from entering Ephrath. And I buried her there on the way to Ephrath, that is, Bethlehem. Then Israel saw Joseph's sons and said, Who are these? Joseph said to his father, They are my sons, whom God has given me here. Then he said, Bring them to me, so I may bless them. Now Israel's eyes had grown heavy with old age, he could not see. So he brought them near to him, and he kissed them and hugged them. And Israel said to Joseph, To see your face I didn't expect, and look, God has let me see your offspring as well. Then Joseph took them from his knees and bowed with his face down to the ground. Then Joseph took the two of them, Ephraim with his right hand across from Israel's left, and Manasseh with his left hand across from Israel's right, and brought them close to him. But Israel stretched out his right hand and placed it upon Ephraim's head, though he was younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh's head, crossing his hands, though Manasseh was the firstborn. So he blessed Joseph and said, "The God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has shepherded me throughout my life to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, may he bless the boys, and may they be called by my name, and by the name of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac. May they multiply to a multitude in the midst of the land." When Joseph saw that his father placed his right hand upon Ephraim's head, it was wrong in his eyes. So he took a hold of his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. Joseph said to his father, "Not like that, my father, because this one's the firstborn, but your right hand upon his head." But his father refused and said, "I know, my son, I know. He also will become a people, and he also will become great. But his younger brother will become greater than he, and his seed will be the fullness of the nations." Then he blessed them that day, saying, In you shall Israel bless by saying, "May God make you like Ephraim and like Manasseh." Um, Thus he put Ephraim before Manasseh. Then Israel said to Joseph, "Look, I am about to die, but God will be with you, and will bring you back to the land of your fathers. Now I myself give you one portion more than your brothers, that which I took from the hand of the Amorites, with my sword and my bow."
Genesis 49. Jacob called his sons and said to them, "Gather together so that I can tell you what will happen to you in the last days. Be assembled and listen, sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel your father. Reuben, my firstborn are you, my vigor and firstborn of my power, endowed with extra dignity, endowed with extra strength. Like water boiling over, you will not have extra. For you got up into your father's bed when you defiled a maid's couch. Simeon and Levi are brothers. Instruments of violence are their knives. Are their knives. In their secret council may my soul not enter. In their contention may my honor never be united. For in their anger they slew men, and in their self-will they maimed oxen. Cursed be their anger, for it was strong, and their rage, for it was cruel. I will disperse them in Jacob. I will scatter them in Israel. Judah, so you are. Your brothers will praise you. Your neck will be on your enemy's neck. Your hand will be on your enemy's neck. Your father's sons will bow down to you. A lion cub is Judah. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He crouches, lies down like a lion, or like a lioness. Who would rouse him? The scepter will not pass from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he to whom it belongs will come. To him will the obedience of the peoples, binding his foal to the vine, his donkey's colt to the choice vine. He washes his garments in wine, and in the blood of grapes his robe. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth that are whiter than milk. Zebulun will dwell by the seashore, and by a harbor for ships. His distant border reaches Sidon. Issachar is a strong bonded donkey, lying down between two saddlebags. He saw that a resting place was good, and that the land was pleasant. He leaned his shoulder to bear a burden, and became a forced laborer. Dan will judge his people, as one of the tribes of Israel. Let Dan be a serpent beside a road, a viper beside a path, who strikes a horse's heel, so that its rider falls backwards. For your salvation I await, Adonai. Gad, attackers will attack him, but he will attack their heels. Asher, rich is his food. He will provide delicacies fit for a king. Naphtali is a doe let loose, who offers words of beauty. A fruitful son is Joseph, a fruitful son beside a spring. Daughters walk along a wall. The archers were bitter and shot arrows, and were hostile towards him. Yet his bow was always filled, and his arms quick moving, by the hands of the Almighty One of Jacob. From there a shepherd, the stone of Israel, from the God of your father, who helps you, and Shaddai, who blesses you, with blessings of heaven above, blessing of the deep that lies below, blessings of breast and womb. The blessing of your father surpasses the blessing of the ancient mountains. The desire of the everlasting hills, may they be upon Joseph's head, upon the crown of one set apart from his brothers. Benjamin is a ravening wolf. In the morning he devours spoils, and in the evening divides plunder. These are the tribes of Israel, 12 in all. And this is what their father spoke to them. He blessed them, each one he blessed them with a suitable blessing. He charged them and said unto them, I am about to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, that is next to Mamre, in the land of Canaan, the field that Abraham brought from Ephron the Hittite as a property for burial. There they buried Abraham with his wife. They were buried there. They buried Isaac and Rebekah, and there I buried Leah. The field was purchased along with the cave in it from the sons of Het. When Jacob finished commanding his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed, and then breathed his last words, and was gathering to his peoples.
All right. 50. Then Joseph, leaning over his father's face, wept and kissed him. He commanded his servants, who were physicians, to embalm his father. So they embalmed Israel. They took 40 days to complete this, for embalming takes that long, and the Egyptians mourned for him 70 days. When the days of mourning were over, Joseph said to Pharaoh's household, If I have found favor with you, please tell Pharaoh that my father made me take an oath, saying, I am about to die. You must bury me in the tomb that I made for myself in the land of Canaan. Now let me go and bury my father. Then I will return. So Pharaoh said, Go and bury your father, in keeping with your oath. Then Joseph went to bury his father, and all Pharaoh's servants, the elders of his household, and all the elders of the land of Egypt went with him, along with all Joseph's family, his brothers, and his father's family. Only their dependents, their flocks, and their herds were left in the land of Goshen. Horses and chariots went up with him. It was a very impressive procession. When they reached the threshing floor of Atad, which is across the Jordan, they lamented and wept loudly, and Joseph mourned 7 days for his father. When the Canaanite inhabitants of the land saw the mourning and the threshing floor of Atad, they said, This is a solemn mourning on the part of the Egyptians. Therefore the place is named Abel Mizraim. It is across the Jordan. So Jacob's sons did for him what he had commanded them. They carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of Machpelah, in the field near Mamre, which Abraham had purchased as burial property from the Ephron the Hittite. After Joseph buried his father, he returned to Egypt with his brothers and all who had gone with him to bury his father. Joseph's kindness. When Joseph's brothers saw their father was dead, They said to one another, "If Joseph is holding a grudge against us, he will certainly repay us for all the suffering we caused him." So they sent this message to Joseph. "Before he died, your father gave a command. Say this to Joseph: Please forgive your brothers' transgressions and their sin, the suffering they caused you. Therefore, please forgive the transgression of the servants of the God of your father." Joseph wept when their message came to him. His brothers also came to him, bowed before him, and said, "We are your slaves." But Joseph said to them, "Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You planned evil against me. God planned it for good, to bring about the present result, survival of many people. Therefore, don't be afraid. I will take care of you and your children." And he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. Joseph's death. Joseph and his father's family remained in Egypt. Joseph lived 110 years. He saw Ephraim's sons to the third generation. The sons of Manasseh's son, Machir, were recognized by Joseph. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am about to die, but God will certainly come to your aid and bring you up from this land to the land he swore to give Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." So Joseph made the sons of Israel take an oath. "When God comes to your aid, you are to carry my bones up from here." Joseph died at the age of 110. They embalmed him and placed him in a coffin in Egypt. Finito.
That is a lot happened in those chapters, man. Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
You got that right.
that was a lot.
It's
It's an amazing story. I mean,
That could be a movie, honestly. I would watch that whole movie.
well, we started at 36, right?
Yeah.
36 to 50. So much happened. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a good amount, that's for sure.
The story of Joseph.
Yeah, it's
I
the first
think
time I've
that's
ever read through the entirety of the story of Joseph. Like, I knew bits and pieces, but
Yeah, same. We my church growing up, we had like a little my book of Bible stories that the kind of the kids would read, and they would have the story of Joseph being imprisoned by his brothers, and sold, and but like reading this verse for verse, like I believe I was reading in it was after he meets his brothers again. I think it was he was talking about when he brought his brothers in to eat with him, and they were afraid at first, but like it showed the emotion of him, like him being unrecognizable by his brothers, and kind of I'm still unsure of what the purpose of that was, but either way, he was unrecognizable, and he had to leave the room a couple times to weep just because of how much he missed his brothers and still had such love for him, and kind of goes to show his attitude. Even after their father dies, when they were unsure if he would forgive them, but he says, basically he said, "I walk with God. Like, of course, I'm going to forgive you," and kind of shows his attitude towards the whole thing,
Yeah, when you say you don't know what the purpose was, what do you mean?
So,
of him bringing them back, sort of thing?
No, the purpose of withholding his identity as his brother. And I tried to kind of make sense of it in my head. It's like, was there a reason, or was he trying to figure out, where they stood as far as their attitude? Was it a form of punishment through God for what they did? Making them jump through the hoops and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I give my interpretation of it, right? So I try to put myself in those shoes, right? So it could be a couple of different things. For one, I mean, obviously, right, his dream came true. They literally bowed before him, called him Lord, which is something they were trying to avoid the entire time. Which is funny that their actions were the exact catalyst to make it happen. But that's besides the point. So, but I mean, if I'm in that situation, right, there's a few things that are going through my head. For one, I'm standing before the people who tried to cast me out in for all they knew to kill him, right? Like who knows what was going to happen
Yep.
to him.
Right.
So what do you do there, right? You're a powerful man, you know. You're literally, I mean, essentially the entire ruler of Egypt at that point, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like what do you do in that situation? I think that I think he wanted. I think, to be honest with you, I think that his feelings were extremely hurt. I think that's evident by the fact that he couldn't compose himself at first during the
Right. When he
meal.
spoke with him harshly, even in the
He
beginning, it was
spoke
his
with them harshly,
father.
right? There was anger, then
Yeah.
there was sorrow at the meal. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think he's still going through that grieving process once he saw them again. And I think that's kind of, I think he wanted them to admit it, you know? He
Right.
wanted, because they told him, like, well, we have a younger brother. And he's like, well, he knows that's a lie, right? Like, that's not the
Right.
youngest. That's not the youngest. I'm the youngest, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so I think he wanted to catch them in a lie. And then I think he wanted them to admit it to kind of get like almost some form of closure. Because it
Right.
clearly
And I
was
think
still
it's the
eating
right
him.
thing to do, right? Not to lie again about it and cover up their transgressions. I think the right thing to do, even in the eyes of God, would have for them to admit what has happened and
Well,
what
yeah,
they
I
have
mean,
done.
presumably, and maybe they would have if he had just been like, like, do you not recognize me, sort of thing. Maybe, or
Right.
maybe they wouldn't have, right? Maybe they would have fled,
Mm-hmm.
and that who knows what would have happened at that point. There was less control that he had over the situation at that point because they could have left,
Right.
and then if he leaves, then not only does the situation not come to pass where um, his dream doesn't come to fruition, but his father and all of his family likely dies after that point
Mm-hmm.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And that hearing you word it kind of like that is more than likely what was,
Maybe, yeah. I'm
kind of
just
going
guessing
on.
what I
Maybe,
would
right?
have taken possibly in that situation.
It's
Who
definitely a
knows?
better structure than what I had in my head because in my head I was like, man, I don't understand that at all. But one thing I did really love about this story is just how sometimes in life you think the worst thing in the world is happening to you,
Right,
right?
right.
And I mean, it came time and time again um, for uh, even when I think about the cupbearer and how he
Yeah,
forgot, right? He forgot about the man who got him out of, or at least interpreted his dreams and whatnot, and then I think that almost in a way that was almost not meant to be, but everything worked out so fluently. Obviously, God kept him in his favor, Joseph in his favor, because I mean, like you said, the same people that sold him, right, and were jealous of him came before him and was bowing down to him and all he I mean being the most powerful man in Egypt, and also too it mentioned how it was important, it was a necessary evil, so to speak, like what his
yeah,
brothers did to him, because and Joseph understood that because he preserved the land and saved. I mean, he said in the passage so many different times the whole world was in famine, right, and he was
right.
feeding all of these people, and
Yeah, saving probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds or millions. So
right, it kind of shows that God always has a plan for you, and if you walk along with him, I mean, it might seem like, and we've talked about this before, but it might seem like, oh man, this is the worst, God has forsaken me, or you might think like that, but
yeah.
sometimes it's like the necessary friction, like we've talked about before.
Well, I think
you
the
know
overlooked part of that, right, is even. So I think most people would look at the actions of the brothers and be like, "Oh, these guys are morally detestable," right?
right.
And obviously, objectively speaking, what they did was wrong. But
Hmm.
is it though? I mean, like you said, the action itself is wrong, but I have zero doubt in my mind that that action was taken because of what was placed in their hearts through God. Because
Right,
you know what I
right.
mean? Like them doing what they did was the entire catalyst for the entire situation of their brother being able to save not only their lives, but like I said, at least all of Egypt and some of Canaan. So, you know, I don't think that they necessarily. And I don't know. I think from the way that I see it, the Bible obviously doesn't state that, but either it was always going to happen, so God used it, which I'm less of a fan of. I'm more of a fan of that it was meant to happen that way because it was God's plan. And if it was God's plan, then sure the action is wrong, but if it's part of God's plan, then I guess it's at least the ends to the means, so to speak, I guess, in that situation.
Right. Right.
Though,
Yeah, because sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying, the way I see it, I think that there's a general, when it comes to humanity, since we are able to have our free will, we get to make the choices.
Yeah.
And even then, as you see evidence in the last one of the chapters, how God told somebody to do it, right? And he's like, nah, so God kills him, right? He didn't listen to God's plan. So whatever
Right.
he had to fulfill with him, it wasn't fulfilled because he refused to listen. So then God killed him, it's said.
Right.
So I think when it comes to a lot of this stuff, there's a set plan for maybe larger details on how things are to be done. For example, Joseph becoming the leader to save his family of Egypt. But I think through our actions, does the minute details deviate to make sure that it still that the end goal still happens. So, I mean, because um um because I mean, there must have been, if his brothers chose to be kind and loving to them, to Joseph, then I mean that wouldn't mean, I'm sure that wouldn't mean that Joseph would never have became.
No, right.
So God would have just slightly changed the little minute details to get him to where he needed to go.
Right.
No,
yeah, I mean, I think there's examples, right? Obviously, you always have free will, but even like, and I get like we'll see in Exodus, right? There are times where God will, like harden the heart of Pharaoh, right?
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it
yeah.
serves his means.
or
So obviously,
he
it's still
allows Satan to
within
get into people.
Pharaoh's capability to be able to say, okay, yeah, sure, you guys can leave Egypt, like I said in the book of Exodus, right? But I think there's times where God, again, just as the same example, hardens the heart or places things in the heart, or utilizes human nature of jealousy and things like that to get people where they're supposed to go. So.
Most definitely. And yeah, I think it's definitely interesting because there's different people. There's the different ways that people end up becoming the way that they are.
Yeah, yeah.
As in, like, some people, for example, for like Judas, it says that Satan interim. For Pharaoh, it says that God hardens his heart. So, like, the way, maybe, I mean, this is just speculation, but one way it might be is God just leaves them to their own devices and allow themselves to, I guess, what's the term I'm looking for? Like, snowball in of themselves. Like, instead of trying to there's some people where he'll try to fight against their nature, and he's like, okay. And then there's other people where it's like, well, I just gave themselves unto themselves. So
right.
So
yeah, I mean, right? Yeah, he is like he has the advantage of being able to be outside of space and time, so to speak. So he knows what's going to happen.
It's like playing 5D chess, except you have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah, everybody else is playing checkers on paper while he's playing, 5D
Well,
chess.
it's like
So.
it's kind of like the lineage that we in one of our first Bible readings. I think it was chapter 4, 3 or 4 of Genesis.
Yeah.
We realized then even through the names that had been given to those people, that God had a plan.
Yeah.
That was one of the first prophecies in the Bible, and so that just kind of reiterates what you're saying, is that that the plan was there. I think there are like maybe little diversions of the plan due to free will. I think free will is a very loving thing that God implements, but I think there's a in my head, I think that Joseph would have got there either way, and I think the brothers allowing the people of his brothers. Yeah. It just made God say, okay, that's what you want to do. Okay, well, guess what? I still got you, Joseph.
Yeah, I think that God, I guess the more that I think about it, the more that I think that with God being outside of time, like he knew that they were going to do that anyways. So that's the avenue that he used.
Right, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
the consequence of their free will. So it's kind of like, a culmination of everything we said.
It's like, oh, you're going to do that? Okay, well, this is my plan.
I agree with you on that, Matt. He probably used everything that we spoke about when it comes to how he makes things happen. He's just like, sprinkle a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Right.
In the giant posh that he calls Earth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, for overall, I think the story is definitely a beautiful. What is the term? Foundation for the understanding. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't know that all the tribes of Israel were names of the founders of Israel. I mean, so that's just as a piece of historical evidence. It's a very beautiful thing to see the foundation on what the rest of the lineage of God spells out and how he gets people. I mean, even think of it like, even though Pharaoh's Pharaoh, I mean, as far as I understand, the Egyptians don't worship God as the Israelites did. Yet God was still kind enough onto him, even though he worshipped false idols.
Right.
And it, and you see that here in the last 5 chapters. You get to see the what is it, like the characteristics of each tribe held out, and like the reasons why the tribes are in the order that they are right here. This tells you why, for example, the tribe of Judah is held in the highest regard, and the Levites end up being the servants, right? Because he talks about how the Levi let his anger control him, and how Judah was very important in the statutes when it came to God. And so it sets to you, like, when you understand why, when, like, one thing I remember reading is when you're in Exodus, when you're watching the Egyptians go around for the 40 years, you see the Levites kind of being like servants unto everyone else, and that they had restrictions and they couldn't get to do stuff. And then right here, because I never read this before like that, bam, it already tells you what's going on.
Yeah, that's a good point. A really good point, actually.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's another really cool thing, just kind of talking about like the whole plan, is when Jacob speaks over his sons in chapter 49, right? And he kind of says like, Zebulon will dwell by the seashore and be by a harbor for ships. His distant border reaches Sidon. Or, Asher riches his food. He provides delicacies fit for a king. Like, I'm assuming this is him kind of talking about their journeys, right? Like what they're going to do and where they're going to go in life and what they're going to offer. And I just think that's crazy. Obviously it was inspired by God, like how he talked to these people, their sons, but think that God kind of always has a plan and you have a purpose, right? Like none of these are the same. You know what I mean? No one really had the same purpose necessarily. And I just think that's really cool.
It's all lovely. I don't know. This reading this stuff kind of put those chills in the back of your body.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a super. Like I said, I don't know. It's definitely. I don't know if it beats Joe, but it's definitely up there.
No, I don't think there's not I think besides the story of Crash, Job is honestly my favorite.
Yeah. Job is my favorite.
Only to Crash,
for sure.
Though I was listening to Romans and Corinthians today while I was at work. I got a little audio book that I listened to it while I work.
Yeah,
bro, that's crazy. I can't wait till we get there.
Yeah, I haven't done a lot with Romans, so I'm looking forward to. Like, there's a lot, right? Like, who knows? There's some random little books that nobody really ever talks about in here too that could be, insanely defining. Who knows?
Dude,
right?
There's so much that in just those first 2 letters that it's like, it's mind blowing. I know it's not about Genesis, but like for me today, like I was like, I because I've been listening over the last couple months, I've been listening on and off to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I
Right,
finally
right.
finished Matthew and John today, and then I went to Romans and the Corinthians because that was the next in order.
Mm-hmm.
And Matthew and John ends with, Jesus telling, to anyone, you guys serve me and you hold my word to truth, so I send you out to the world. And anyone who believes you and your word,
Right.
believe it's me. And anyone who believes in me believes in the Father.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's, man, I mean, it brought tears to my eyes more than once when I'm listening to Romans and Corinthians because it answers
Mm.
quite a few, if not big questions that people have. And it's interesting that I haven't seen more mainstream media talk about it more than just the little highlighted like Romans things. They'll take out like the one verse
Mm-hmm.
because like for example when he talks about um, uh, how do I put this? When he talks about the difference between uh, whether someone who truly in the way the book was worded, someone who truly believes in God behaves in this way, or in Jesus, and someone who's slightly weak in their faith behaves in this way. But
Right.
neither one of them is wrong. Don't let one hate the other, and don't let one despise
Mm.
the other, but let them both work together to glorify Jesus. Like
Oh, that's
that's a
beautiful.
beautiful thing right there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Right, right.
Two different people that try to go to the same outcome, maybe in two slightly different ways, all because at the end of the day, neither one of them is correct or incorrect, but the faith in Jesus is what makes them justified.
Right.
and,
And you
I'm
said that
just
was
sitting there.
is that Matthew?
That was in Romans.
Oh, it's in Romans. Okay, okay.
Romans, near the
Interesting.
end, near the end,
I've read
and
John. John was really good.
I love John.
Yeah, John was
John,
super good.
I know listening to the first 10 verses of
Mm-hmm.
chapter 1. I mean, I cried.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about hearing those words being said. It's
Right.
just,
Oh yeah,
oh
John was a
my.
beautiful book, man. I definitely got emotional a few different times reading it. Matthew, I haven't read all of Matthew, um, despite it
Matthew,
being
Mark,
my
Luke.
name, which kind of is ridiculous on my part. But
Well, I
um,
noticed Matthew and Mark are kind of similar, which makes
yeah,
sense because someone told me that. Someone told me. I heard somewhere that someone said that Matthew took his information from Mark, or Mark took his information from Matthew, because one of them didn't know Jesus that well,
right,
and was a longer time before they wrote the book, so they kind of used the same, which made sense. And then what Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, um, they both started differently,
right,
but what was interesting for me is about halfway there, about the time of Jesus' crucifixion, did they start to be very similar, and then John continues to go farther into depth about um, details after the crucifixion,
right.
excluding the temple, I think, or it briefly touched on it, which and it, I think it's beautiful when you look at the accounts because the general concept is the same,
Right.
but just like when it comes with the in real life eyewitness accounts, right? The minute details of what each person remembers. Like one
Mm-hmm.
person remembers that Simon Peter, or Jesus told Simon Peter the cock crows twice. Another person remembers before the cock crows at all, um, or um, or when he betrays. Um, and one person remembers Judas's, getting hanged, and that's it. And the other one talks about how Judas hanged and fell, and his guts spilled over the floor.
Right.
And it really goes to think like, to me, it feels like if it was something tried to built by man to be replicate, I think
Yeah.
it's like minute details like that would have been messed up. Because like I
Right.
don't know about you, but so many times have I tried to copy something from somebody, and it ends up being close to an identical copy. And
Right.
then when you
Right.
look at this, it's like it feels as if you sit in a courtroom listening to people trying to give a story on, like, truthfully give a story of what they saw, and it's like, well, they all say this close to the same thing, but there's just little tweaks that are different in it. I don't know. That to me
Yeah, I think
feels like an important thing.
I can't remember. I think it was Cliff. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He does a lot of like college campus talks.
Yes, I know
Um,
Cliff.
I believe he talked about it.
It might have
And
been
that
him who said it to
he
me.
he kind of was saying, well, like that's part of the reason that I do think that they're so reliable is that they're not exactly the same, right? Because like I mean, much like you said, right? If I'm copying homework, um, I have to kind of I have to try to make it look like I'm not copying detail for detail, and you just can't do it very well, right?
Yeah.
Um, but if you look at
No, no.
the accounts of the different, Matthew, Mark, Luke, etc., John, they're telling the same story, but yeah, like you said, it is more realistic in how each individual kind of recalls and remembers different aspects, like
Mm.
like I do, and like even just us reading, right? One of the things I noticed that we read tonight is the when the famine was going on and the Egyptians are coming to Joseph and they're like, "Yo, like here, like we need food, homie," and
Yeah.
he's like, "Okay, well, give me all your silver." They do it. Um, so now they've completely destroyed their wealth. They have
Yeah.
no money left to their name. They come back. He says, "Okay, well, give me all your cattle." So now they have no cattle. So once this famine's over, what they have no money, they have no means to get more money. So what are they going to do? So then they come back a third time, and then they're willing to give up their freedom, which is
Yeah.
it shows you that what people would do when they're desperate, right? They willingly
Mhm.
handed over their lives to somebody. Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
know,
in
like that's
Exodus
something that I
we're
picked
gonna
up
go into
on.
that even further too.
Yeah, yeah. In Exodus, right? Yeah, it's happens in Exodus as well, like you said. But yeah, it's just like to watch that happen, not in real time, but in real time is kind of like because I mean, not to get too crazy, too political. I'm not going to get into it too deep, but you see things like that happen sometimes in real life as well. Um,
Oh yeah,
you know what I
people
mean? In
in
different
servitude,
countries and all sorts
servitude
of
or
stuff. So
something,
yeah,
endeavored servitude is what it's called or something.
indentured servitude. But I'm talking about
Yeah,
just like people willing to give up freedoms for the idea of
yeah,
security, right? As long as
Mhm.
if you can promise somebody food, a home, relative
well,
amount of safety, they're willing to give up a
well,
lot of different freedoms.
well, even
Uh,
if you go outside of political stand, we do that when we come to our jobs. We give up, like for the most
Yeah.
part, we give up. What is the term? We give up authority and direction to those higher of us in a job workplace
Mm-hmm.
for a form of currency to provide for ourselves.
Yeah.
So I mean, it would be
Yeah. I
so
mean, you're
basically it's
selling
no different
yourself,
than
right?
it's no different than what they did. We give our lives in order to
Yeah.
continue to live.
what? Yeah, one thing I do want to mention, I actually got to get wrapped up, boys. I got to go pick up some things for the kiddos. But one thing I did want to say on along that lines is we got to be very stay ready because this whole mark of the beast thing that's a prophecy in Revelations is I think in my opinion, I mean Matt, you sent me a video the other day and
Yeah.
it feels like it's going to be and along those lines of giving things up, like I think a lot of people are going to be ignoring the teachings in Revelation simply because of the fact that they're scared and they want to put food on their table. It says we will not be able to buy, sell, or trade, right? So
Hmm.
um without the mark of the beast. So if the times are going to get tough, and
Yeah.
those famines
And I
are
mean,
definitely going to come back
that
around. And
video kind of like people can say what they
Yeah,
want. They can think whatever they want, right? Like
right,
if any government says that you have to have a chip in your hand
yeah, we
to
were
be able
talking,
to
thinking about the same
use
thing.
money,
yeah,
The chip
then
credit card
that's
thing.
not it's not something that I would like to take part in
no,
because you
same.
Yeah, I
literally
agree.
couldn't buy, sell, or trade. You can disagree on the time frame of Revelation's prophecy. I'm not a prophet. I will never
Claim to be
blaspheme
one.
God by
Yeah,
claiming to be, but I mean that's pretty damn close from what I can tell. I can't buy, sell, or trade without this chip, and I mean,
yeah,
and it's literally reading it just like a mark on my hand. So I don't know. I don't know.
right. Yeah,
It
there's a
is what
lot
it
wrapped
is.
up in that, and Stampy actually did find. I think it was Romans 14 that you were talking about. The subtitle is unity and community. and it kind of talks about just not judging each other. If one eats meat and one only eats vegetables or whatever, like
Yeah,
not to
that's it,
judge
right?
that, right? But I think
Mhm.
it's a really something that kind of got me really thinking, because it talks about that, which was beautiful, and it makes me kind of think about how there's a lot of division between
The churches.
the churches, and like my family are Jehovah's Witnesses, a portion of them, and that's created a lot of division. And that's one of the things I was talking to them about. I was like, well, hey, for all we know, we're living on the same Jesus here, right? So like,
Yeah.
Right.
like, does there really have to be such a division? But anyways, it talks about in one of the latter verses, it says, "It is not. It is. It is good not to eat meat or drink wine or do anything by which your brother stumbles. The
Yeah.
faith you have, keep it to yourself before God."
Where it's
Right.
just like, yeah, it's just like, for example, like with my dad. My dad, he's a recovering alcoholic, right?
Right.
And so, in his presence, like, it's not wrong for me to drink, right? I can
Right.
control
Right.
myself and everything, but in his presence, it would be wrong because I
It's
don't want to
definitely
induce that.
disrespectful and it puts him at risk.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I don't want to induce that, and that's the exact because that's exactly what came to my mind when I was listening to this. Is like like what for a little bit ago I was like, okay, there's a lot of rules I have to follow. Let's start with my diet. I'm not allowed to eat this, this, and this, and this,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden you read Matthew and and the Pharisees are like, your servants don't wash their hands. They're defiling themselves when they eat, and
Mm,
Jesus goes, correction, my guy. Listen, it's not about what you eat that makes you corrupted. It's about what comes out of your mouth. And I'm like,
yeah.
brain. And then on top of that, he tells us to listen to what his disciples or apostles say. Then his apostles say the same thing years after he's dead. I mean, that's not coincidence.
Right.
Or
Right. Right. Well, I like the verse 2 here that says, um, um, it says, "Nothing is unholy in itself,
hmm
but it is unholy for the one who considers it unholy. For if your brother is grieved on account of food, you are no longer walking according to love."
yeah,
Um,
if
it's
you
kind of like we see these divisions. We see like example of your father. Like we see these things. I think it's really easy for humans to say, "Oh well, I'm just not going to hang out with him because I don't want to condemn myself, because I
yeah,
don't want to change a behavior pattern, or I don't want to say a certain thing or eat a certain food or not do the same or not do those things." And I just really like
Oh,
that
sweet
scripture. How it
Jesus.
kind of yeah. It's I'm sorry. Go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry. Were you
Oh
gonna say
no,
something?
I'm sorry. I'm now I want to read Romans. So I was just trying to see like
Yeah.
how many pages is
No,
it? How many
chapter
chapters is
14.
it? So
yeah.
now
Chapter
I'm probably
14.
gonna
And
start
that,
reading Romans tomorrow. So.
and that
Yeah.
because like it was beautiful because like basically from what I understand it's like let's just say us three were to sit down and have a meal, right? I'm gonna be honest with you, I love my meat. I
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
love meat. I'm a
Yeah.
meat eater. But Romans tells me like if we're sitting together and Mac, if you tell me like, hey, God says we're not supposed to eat that. You're not supposed to eat that pork. What are you doing, man? Well, it's understood of me that my responsibility is like, okay, you're right. Let me throw this away, get away from it, and I'll eat what you eat. Because in your
Right.
presence, I don't want to make you stumble in of your own mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because like it said, if you believe it to be unholy, and I'm over here be like, nah,
Mhm.
nah, I'll fight on you, and I try to convince you. Well, for you, I made you sin. It says I made you sin, for I made you stumble in it.
Yep.
Right.
And if I truly love you, which I do, I don't want to cause anyone to sin. I don't want to be a reason why they made a mistake.
Yep.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Me and
watched a
Kendall were having
video with
the same.
a woman who was talking about that today. So it's funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's that's why it spoke to me too, because me and Kendall were having a very similar conversation. He brought up these scriptures just off the top of the head, but he couldn't give me a name to them.
Yeah.
So it's actually I definitely want to read Romans as well. And on that, boys, I'm gonna have to go. The kiddos are
Yeah,
waiting on me. We gotta
I
go.
got dinner as well.
Yeah.
We gotta go pick up their new beds. So
No
gotta
Well,
get
worries.
going.
No worries.
Mac, you be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same.
Much love, boys, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks
Good
for
Love
the
you
talk. Good
read.
guys,
talk. I'll
man.
see you guys next week.
Yes,
See ya.
sir. Yep.
Later. Bye.
You be safe, Matt.
You as well, brother.
Yes, sir.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. I know it's a little bit longer of a video, but I mean, I hope that it was entertaining. It's certainly entertaining for me and for the boys. So I truly appreciate your time. I love all of you very much. That's the that's the end of Genesis, man. That's what a way to finish off. Next week we'll come back with Exodus. So it's going to be fun. I've read Exodus before. Lots of fun stuff in there. It's going to be a good time. Make sure to tune in. Let me know in the comments if you got anything, maybe you picked up on something different out of the story of Joseph. Maybe you have a different interpretation of something that I did. So, love to hear it. Again, if you want to check it out, Discord server, House of Adonai. I will try to drop a link in the description if it'll let me. YouTube's weird about that. At the very least, I'll try to drop it in the comments if I can. So, yeah, I appreciate you. I love you guys, and thanks for watching. Bye bye. Remember, all of us are sinners, yet we are loved by Jesus. I pray that you listen to this message and remember the sacrifice he made so that your suffering would not be eternal, but that your love would be. Amen.